houses are very, small. The area square foot can be around 200 to 300 square foot, and then to 4 to 5 people to stay in one shelter for very long time. At one point, it was very, I would say, support, and then it was a different experience. But on the other hand, it created lot of responsibility for women, and in our parts of the world, as we know all, that basically the cooking, washing of utensils, cleaning clothes, keeping the house clean. Most of the job is supposed to be done by women, and even in the rural and urban areas. The second most worrisome point was regarding getting ration, and regarding that also, the government of Maharashtra and government of India went out of the way that in many places, as people migrated because of the overall situation, they were not carrying their ration cards. So government tried to provide ration. Whoever is not having ration card also, they should get grains. And especially the grain support was also provided by many charitable institutions where Sri Aadhar Kendra tried to do a lot of support, especially for single women, domestic workers, vegetable vendors, women from the red light areas. And really, we had never thought in our lives, as we have not seen the world wars, that such situation will arise where people will have to struggle for daily groceries, or even to get a bag of milk which will be sanitized, and then that reaches home. And then along with these changes in the lifestyle, many women from the unorganized sector, they lost their jobs because they were not able to travel. Then there was a lot of fear of getting, I would say, getting contagious disease like corona, which has a very serious repercussions. So 85% of the domestic labor support, they had to stop going to workplace where they were working. And even on the other hand, the senior citizens, women, men, or the children who were supposed to look after, especially in urban areas where women were going out. So all this, everything changed. Along with that, the fear, the third change was fear of getting our near and dear ones affected, and yourself being affected, and especially all the time in the night time. Mostly the voice which was audible was the siren of the ambulance. So that was also quite depressing, and many people, many of our near dear and friends have been lost lives in this period. And all that phase was, I would say, that like going through a tunnel which is never going to end. Something of that feeling was there. Along with the job loss and this unemployment, there was also there were other patients who were going through other elements, and then they were not able to get support from the hospitals because 80% of the bed had to be reserved for the COVID patients. And on top of it, when the lockdowns were announced, many front runners, or I would say working COVID yodhas, we call them warriors for working for COVID, even the police people, the municipal corporation, I came across many officers for Mumbai Municipal Corporation who said that they have never been to their home for more than 40 days, 50 days. They were worried that family members will be affected through this. And different QR type of a complaints where people cannot attend funerals. On the other hand, the family bond has given lot of support. And in these circumstances, Sri Aadhar Kendra, already Aparna Pathak will explain the process. However, as a deputy chairperson, I got requests for a many different type of support. People who were stranded in different parts of India, different parts of the state. Number two was getting patients admitted in the hospital, as the many hospitals were full. Thirdly, getting tests done was a very big challenge. And also, there was another issue where doctors and nurses who were doing work in hospitals, in certain societies, people said that you need not stay here because we will be getting COVID affected. So we had to take also community meetings. I had to talk to the police, and all these things we had to do virtually. So itself, it was a very big, I would say, phase of depression and phase of struggle, which went on and on and on. And when we are thinking of women, they were not able to approach police or support centers or distress centers because how they will talk in front of the family members. So this was also we had to tackle through Sri Aadhar Kendra. So my first, I would say, my first I feeling is that survival of the family, survival of the marginalized people, and within families and all to get medical treatment for the needy people, which we had to coordinate a lot with the government. So this first phase, and now also again as we are going into the same phase, I think we have to reiterate the lessons learned through this. And so this interactive session is also part of our I would say our media, through which we are trying to come to recommendations, we are trying to come to the government, and we are trying to reach these lessons so that it can be generalized, and on the other side best practices can be also thought about. So CSW Virtual Forum has provided a space through which we can take this recommendation to United Nations and our governments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gore. Indeed, it was phase of depression and struggle for many of us, but thanks for sharing the work that SAK is doing, you all are doing, and thanks for your thoughts. I would like to move next to Mrs. Chandani Joshi. Chandani ma'am, could you please share your thoughts? Over to you. You have to mute yourself, Chandani ji.
Unmute.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, our own respected Neelamji, and I would also want to reciprocate that Neelamji is my friend, philosopher, and guide too. We have been through thick and thin in very difficult days of preparing for the Fourth World Conference. And as I see Neelamji there, lots of memories come back. So maybe we could do that later. So I would really want to, address the fellow panelists who are with me, the learned ones, and our distinguished participants and moderator for today's session. A very good evening and afternoon for some, and good morning to others. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my views and to express my feelings, in this session today. Though we haven't been able to reach a larger crowd, but it doesn't matter. Our voice will reach. It will reach somewhere. I'm very positive. One thing we have to remember that whenever any disaster hits in any country, the whole gender issue gets, it trembles. It takes a back seat. It's forgotten. So the same thing happened after COVID. And Neelamji's presentation was very crisp in terms of describing. So here, I want to share that I wear many hats. And today I'll wear the hat of enforcer of HomeNet South Asia, because we had done a quick, rapid assessment of what has been the impact of COVID, especially on home-based workers, who are marginalized and who are at the bottom of the pyramid, as we talk about the excluded women, who are often forgotten, who are not listened to, who are invisible, and who are even, forgotten. Their contribution is never assessed in the national accounting system. So I'm going to talk about them. So this study says a lot of things, which it will sound like repeating that Neelamji said, but there are two things that came out very, very strongly. One thing that came up is, since they were not the poorest of the poor, they were marginalized, they were discriminated, they were not heard, not seen, but still they were not the poorest of the poor. So they did not get
Looks like Chandani ji's video is frozen. Let's give her some time. We can move to next speaker. Otherwise, we can play her video, her backup video. Let's give her some time because sometimes it does come back. Chandani ji, if you can hear us, can you try switching off your video? Sometimes that helps. I think she dropped out. No problem. We are all used to this technical glitches. Why don't we move to our next panelist? And then when Chandani ji joins back, we can again hear from. So Ajay ji, could you please turn on your video? Maybe you can go next. And Ajay Kha, he has been working with SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, for last 15 to 20 years. And he has especially worked on the issues of intersectionality of gender and other development work. So I would
I'm
request him. Oh, Chandani ji, you're back.
back. I'm sorry.
No problem.
This is
No problem.
Nepal and our internet systems.
No,
Okay?
we all understand. Don't worry. So do you want to continue?
Yeah, I want to continue. I haven't said what I need to say. I
Sure.
was just giving. Okay, give me like 5 minutes, 7 minutes at least.
No problem.
So one thing we saw was groups we were organized. At least their institution helped them to not only their resilience but help them in their livelihoods, in bettering their future. I would say. But the four things that was reported again and again in all the countries were almost the same that Neelamji said. But I should also give justice to the research that was done, and which had quite a big sample that we looked at. The first one was the fear factor. The fear factor that the whole concept was maybe pralaya is happening, maybe it's the end of the world, because none of us, a 74-year-old, even me, I had never seen that kind of a terror ever in the world, right? So everyone was very, very fearful. So the loss of jobs and livelihood itself was a fear factor, and you never knew who's going to die when. So that fear was also there. And then the reported cases, the rising violence was so evident, especially domestic violence. And when it came to the home-based workers, it was also violence by middlemen, not getting enough pay for the work they had already done, where they were asked for sexual favors, and that came up very strongly, along with domestic violence. And there was very difficulty. The difficulty was reporting. They couldn't go out of the house because of the restricted mobility. They couldn't even go and report. Whom do they report to came up. And then the existing inequalities we saw. There was discrimination, but the inequalities became so widened, it really spread like dramatically. We saw that very evidently. And another portion is because everyone was home. The children didn't go to school, the adults were there, the elderly were there. So their work burden tripled. The hours of work in terms of what Neelamji also said, in cleaning, cooking, feeding, and it was more like 24/7. They are working like, 24 hours a day for all 7 days. That factor also really affected women a lot. So the finding was that the accountability doesn't only lie in the government, it lies a lot on the government, but it also lies in the family. So, the whole work burden of the trajectory has to really function and look at, the different aspects of women's work very, very keenly. So I think I'll stop here for this first question, then I'll come to it later. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And very important findings. Especially, I agree with the fear factor. There was a mass fear phenomenon, and our generation here, even previous generation, hasn't experienced that kind of fear in our lifetime. So really, really important. And now let's have Mr. Jha to give us overview of sustainable development goals and especially in intersectionality with the gender issues. Thank you, Mr. Jha.
Thank you so much, Saptarji. My namaskar and greetings to Madam Chair Chandni Joshi ji, Aparna Vaikar ji, Aparna Pathak ji. I also recognize and greet Aparna Sahai ji, who has been our chair and still guides us through thick and thin. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'll rather confine my input on the earlier part of the topic, that is transforming pandemic challenges into action on SDGs, because that's what I do. But we have a great panel of people who will speak more competently and elaborately on gender. But I see if something is being missed, I'll try to add that. So as far as progress on SDGs in previous year is concerned, I don't have anything very bright to report. I mean, few goals which have progressed. The greatest progress they report on SDG 3, that is health and well-being, and on SDG 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. But I mean, it's not a great progress in the sense that a couple of indicators might have progressed, but even these goals are not completely in the direction of being achieved at the current pace. But more importantly, there is regression on very critical goals of climate change, which is section SDG 13 and SDG 14, which is life below water. And even during the pandemic, all of Asia Pacific was thrashed severely by climate change disasters. Asia still is accountable for more than half of the global emissions. There was some progress reported on goals like SDG 1, SDG 2, which is about food security and eradicating hunger. Then SDG 4, which is about SDG 4, SDG 6, SDG 10, which is about inequality. But very important in this context is that the progress on goals like SDG 5, which relates to gender, SDG 6, which relates to water, SDG 7, which relates to access to energy, SDG 8, which relates to decent work, is too slow. And by too slow, what we mean that each of the targets, whether you talk about discrimination, whether you talk about violence against women and girls, whether you talk about harmful practices, whether you talk about unpaid care work, whether you talk about effective participation and leadership among women, we have too slow progress on this. And mind you that this report is not actually based on the data during the pandemic. So it's no surprise to guess that none of the countries, 53 countries of the Asia Pacific region, are likely to achieve any goal of the SDG or Agenda 2030 by 2030. This is exactly like no country in the world is in a situation to achieve any SDG goal by 2030. This is a very sad scenario, I would say. On gendered impacts during COVID-19, I mean, we know that more than half of the poor people in the region and also in the world are women. So poverty and inequality among women has increased many times. Asia Pacific has 640 million poor, among whom more than half are women, and it is likely to add another 600 million people by 2030, pushing them into multidimensional poverty. I mean, if you look at livelihoods and jobs, all sectors where women have congregation or they have larger share of employment, you talk about manufacturing, you talk about tourism and hospitality sector, you talk about health and individual care sectors, you talk about agriculture. These are the sectors where women work more than men, and all of them have been hugely affected. So women as a social group being hugely affected during the COVID pandemic, even if you look at subgroups, like you look at elderly, you look at workers, you look at migrants, you look at healthcare workers, among women in all these men. The lessons I would say from this pandemic is one, that role and leadership of women. I mean, from managing national responses to COVID-19 pandemic to managing households, we could see the importance of women. Secondly, we could also see the importance of and utility of civil society organizations, because on many fronts, and especially on providing relief and food services and transportation, I mean, I think civil society organizations did more than what the government did. But on the larger perspective, we also had a very clear message from the pandemic that privatization and neoliberal globalization have failed, and it busted its myth that market equals everybody and globalization is fair to all. And we could see the utility, importance, and centrality of the government and public institutions, because it were only the public institution and government institutions which could rescue people during these emergencies. So I'll stop here in this section. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay Ji. Indeed, the utility and centrality of government institution is something that we experience all through the globe, in all the countries. And again, all three of the speakers mentioned something that our women empowerment advocates know for many years, that whenever any disaster strikes, whether it is a natural disaster, it is a pandemic, the women as a group always suffer. They always take a back seat. So no wonder that from all their stories, this important insight is reflecting again. So let's move on to Shanghai now. Ms. Aparna Vaiker is there to join from Shanghai, and she will share her experiences of working with the communities in China during the COVID pandemic time. Thank you, Aparna Vaiker.
Hello. Am I audible? Good.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So
Perfect.
Ni Hao from Shanghai. I'm really happy to join this forum today. I feel really fortunate that I got this chance to speak to all of you, and it's really nice to hear all my co-panelists, and they are all so very well learned, and I will just try to share few experiences from China. I work here as an art teacher in the community center Shanghai. So in the community center, along with the art, we also have few programs like counseling and conversation clubs. So like I always feel very, very impressed by Nilamtai Gore and her team, how important, how amazing work they are doing for the women. So we try to do a little bit of that. So what happened was, when the pandemic hit here, it started in China. Unfortunately, it was really bad in the first phase. Nobody knew what exactly is happening. And suddenly everything was closed. The kids were at home, the husbands were at home, everybody was under a lockdown. So like Chandani ji and Neelam Tai mentioned, here also it happened that the women of the house really had too many things, too many responsibilities. Suddenly she was doing everything. She was managing the home, she was managing her kids, she was managing their distance learning. There was a lot of demand from the husbands, from the kids, and also she had to do the household work because there was no maid who is coming to help her. So more or less this was the same picture here as well. And I would like to give an example here. This example is from a small town, and this example is from a doctor's wife, of a doctor's wife. So this lady, she had a ailing mother-in-law at home, and her husband, being a doctor, he was placed in Wuhan, where there was the pandemic and it was really badly needed. So he was there 24/7 on the duty. And this lady was just at home in a small apartment along with her ailing mother-in-law, her toddler child. It was so much that, you know, it went on and on and on. She was so frustrated. She just wanted to hear few nice words that, you know, somebody is helping her, somebody is telling her that how good you are working. But unfortunately, not even from her husband she could get that. So we got a very panic emails from her at the CCS, and then we decided to start our online counseling sessions and some of the conversation clubs where these ladies can come together and they can just open up. We just lend a shoulder for them to just, open up and tell their worries and share their things with us. And this way we could help at least a few of them. Unfortunately, we could not help a lot of them, but at least, we tried our best. So this also happened with the Indian community, I would say, because there are so many Indian people who are still stranded in India. And some of them, like there are examples like the husband is here or the wife is here, and one of them is, staying back home in India. They cannot come because of some visa issues. So we also keep getting the messages and the calls, and to sometimes, to the extent that they feel like committing suicide. So it's nice that we can at least talk to them, at least help them by talking to them and guiding them to the right path. I know that we cannot actually bring their family back here, but at least, we are lending them our shoulder. We are trying our best to talk to them. So these conversation clubs really help. And in Shanghai, it is like a community where we live is more like predominantly there are expatriates. So these expatriates means I'm sure everybody knows that we don't belong to this country, but we are here because of our work. So many of them, they needed help because of all these type of issues. And I'm really happy that, we could just help them. We could guide them. We could give them the confidence that even if they cannot control the situation, but they should not get reduced by the situation. And I feel happy that at least we could do that here.
Thank you, Aparnata. Great work. Voices of compassion, giving somebody just kind words and care. It's sometimes all that people need. So thanks a lot for your work and sharing that with us. And moving on to work that has happened in India during pandemic, Aparna Pathak is here. She is trustee of Sri Aadhar Kendra, and they have done a lot of work with community women, with low-income communities in India. So I would like to invite Aparna Pathak ji to share her experiences. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Satlaj. Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Virtual platform of CSW65 has given us opportunity to share our experience. And here I like to mention Sri Aadhar Kendra whole team, our trustees, our staff, and of course our volunteers. When we say socioeconomic strata, which basically refers to categorization of women under wealth, income, education, geographic region, and what we have seen is COVID-19 pandemic has affected all the segments of society. Women had new challenges, new responsibilities on all fronts. And of course, everyone experienced fear, panic situation. The main challenge here was shortage of food, shortage of funds, mainly for vulnerable groups, disabled, migrants, sex workers, domestic helpers. Actually, what we have seen here on the roads also, we have seen some women asking for grocery help. And there they had ill treatment from men. So even during this pandemic, that violence was still there. Then we have so many volunteers, so many women all across states. Some women were from self-help group. Usually they get funds from government. But since COVID, all the government funds were diverted for COVID relief. So for them, the challenge was to generate income and to access the market, because usually these people give food supplies. So during COVID, we gave them responsibility to give foods to senior citizen, old age home, because there the domestic help was not there. Then one more thing was like preparing masks, gloves, and providing them to the local hospitals along with the help of community volunteers. Then there were some women from agriculture sector. They had no access to market. So their WhatsApp group were formed, and then they were connected to the residential area where they could supply the food supply to door-to-door delivery. So women from different areas had different challenges. They had all new responsibilities. Due to diversification of funds, of course, there were some shortage of funds as well. So through Sri Aadhar Kendra and through some our donations, we could raise funds even for them. Domestic violence was really at extremely high level, irrespective of economic status, education status, and regional status. That is, so women had to work in double shift. There was completely new scenario from work from home for everyone, taking care of online education of their children. And I must say, gender equality needs to be promoted in unpaid care sector. Definitely. Then taking care of mental and health wellness of family was a new challenge as well as new responsibility. Then we are having some women who are COVID warriors. They were working in hospitals, as Neelam Tai mentioned. Even their families had a challenge. These women didn't go to their house, they didn't visit their family. And there was one more thing we mentioned, that some women with good economic status or with good funds, they were participating in some cooking talent challenges. They were participating challenges on social media, and their photos were morphed. So we got even social media or digital literacy was also a challenge, because with this new scenario under rules and regulation of lockdown, the whole scenario changed. And what we have seen was lack of medical aid, legal aid, safety, health and hygiene. And of course, I must mention here authentic information, because this WhatsApp University had a lot of information for everyone. So with the help of Neelam Tai, Jailam Tai, and our trustee, our staff did fact crescendo, where we helped them with the authentic information. So whenever there is a pandemic, whenever the situation is there, then monitoring and assessment is very important, along with providing the right information to everyone. So in our, what we have experienced is the overall health, economic, social crisis were there. And there were challenges of new norms of payment, Google Pay, Phone Pay, then virtual platform, digital literacy, work procedure, and wellness. But among these, I must mention all the volunteers, the young boys and girls and seniors, everyone came together for help. So yes, inclusion of young generation is our new responsibility. Here, I'd like to conclude by quote, if something is important enough, even if the odds are against us, we should still stand for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aparna Tai, and thank you raising important issues in this new age. Authentication of information, digital literacy, digital safety of women. These are really new issues that we all experience first time on this scale in this pandemic. So thanks for raising these important issues, and thanks for sharing the work, your experiences that you experienced through COVID. So thanks a lot. Let's move to the second question now. Second question, I would like to ask panelists about what, in their opinion, are the long-term or short-term impact or even generational impacts of COVID-19 on the issues that they are engaged in. These issues can be of women empowerment, gender justice, or SDGs progress. So let's discuss what our panelists think the COVID-19, what mark COVID-19 will left on us. So I would again like to invite Madam Chair, Dr. Gore, to start this round of conversation. Thank you. Dr. Gore, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. I think all the points which were mentioned by all the panelists were very valid. And when we are going ahead, basically when we are thinking of the long-term impact, I think first lesson what we have learned is that to have a support system within our neighborhood, because unless and until there is no support which is available, it's very difficult. You may be very, very rich, you may be very, very poor, and keeping everything together also to keep support going on, because we observed that in the families, every member become affected in certain cases. And then who will cook the food, who will look after the patient? Everybody cannot be admitted in a hospital. On the other hand, the famous temple in Pune, the main priest who looks after the temple, 16 members from the family were admitted in Sassoon hospital at same time. So there were examples after examples where we could see the total families and whole villages after villages getting devastated. Secondly, even in a one building, if one or two patients are positive, then it will go into the containment area. So being part of the containment area is also something very crucial. And people who were around me, I would say some of my staff members, they got also affected by corona themselves personally. So all that process is very difficult to forget. Always we have talked about tea. So tea is generally TAT, where everybody is so happy to have tea. But these four teas, which have become part of the process last 1 year, and it may remain for next few years, is that tracing, testing. First is tracking, tracing, testing, and treating. These four T's were become so important, especially in the areas which are very densely populated, like Dharavi, like Varli Kolivada, like Pune area. Also in certain slums, also in certain big buildings where there are more than 100 people are staying together. Because sanitization of the lifts, sanitization of the toilets, and then going to the market, and people felt started very suffocating. You know, now the where in Mumbai where we stay, this is the area where fishermen communities stay, and they day and night they are moving around. They are up to 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Sometimes they are dancing, sometimes they are celebrating the marriage. And this fisherman community, they were so suffocated because they were not allowed to buy fish, or they were not able to sell the fish. So what they tried to do, I would say it is a different type of rebellion. They took their small boats and they went to crossing the sea. They used to go to another Kolivada and they used to meet their this thing. So policemen were looking after on the roads while the fishermen were going through the sea, and they were meeting each other. Now then that started increasing the number of patients. And so slowly and slowly government also learned that they have to see how people are reacting to the mask or the other restrictions. So a lot of people's educations had to be done. So now first year impact, I would always say that all these T's, and along with that there are few friends who became part of our lifestyle. That was the mask, their oximeter. Everybody feels so happy and relieved when we see our oxygen 98, 97. So that is something we never anticipated, that these oximeters will become so close and dear one's friend. Then along with that, thermometers, all other type of information which is authentic one, and now the vaccine. So with this vaccine, it is going to remain for a longer time in our lives. And what are the effects of vaccine? Also, I came across some families, that observation is quite disturbing, but I came across that the very senior citizen in the family who are above 70, 75, 80, nobody took them for vaccination. And on the other hand, people who are mobile, who are in 60s or 65, they went out and got vaccinated first. So, you know, we have to also see to it. Also, I came across some single senior citizen women who said that there is nobody to take them, and how to make this arrangement online. So now walk-in system for vaccine has been started in most of the cities. So that is also important. Along with that, when I come to 5-year impact, I feel climate change has become a very crucial issue, because social distancing, how we can really follow in climate change disasters. If there are more rains, if there is a thunderstorm, people, how can they have a social distancing in a small tin of shade where they have been vacated? So these issues of climate change, so the government has also learned, and government of Maharashtra has come out with a new mitigation plan for climate change and how social distancing can affect. Because in the corona times also there was a Nisarga cyclone which made devastation in Konkan area. So again, people losing the job, and on the other hand, all the trees of coconut, all the trees were totally destroyed. Electricity was cut, and in such circumstances, water got polluted at many places because some dead animals were there. So I think there are, I would say, lot of difficulties and obstacles after obstacles. So we have learned the three, I would say, norms or parameters, that nobody should be left behind. We have to try to take everybody together, whether it is a storm or whether it is corona or whether that is everything. And here I do feel some empathy and sympathy together, because as a legislator, we got 6.5 million rupees, so which we can use for social development work. Out of 6.5 million rupees, 6.2 millions I was able to use for the PP units, the oximeters, the sanitizer, the gloves, and 3 ambulances in the remote areas where it was very difficult for patient to take them to the government hospitals nearby in last 6 months. Along with that, we were no one should be left behind is one of the major, I would say, ideological point. But other should be that we have to be also live within our own means, which means that people were so accustomed. I don't want to criticize, everybody has gone through the phase, but everybody was so accustomed of buying food from outside to have different type of menus and different type of continental food. And suddenly I remember one picture sent by Satlat that time, that a child is crying, and that child of course comes from an affluent family, and that child is saying, oh, this shop is closed, this shop is closed, Starbucks is closed, McDonald's. So how do I survive? So even that was a good lesson for children, so that how they can survive. And I came across many poor women, and they said that we are so, every day we are eating only dal, chawal and chapati, or this thing roti, and they are not getting anything else to eat. But they were happy that they were able to eat at least for 45 days, and they did not have to beg on the way. Also the process and ready-made food was also given. So this process of using our own means in a slightly conservative way, or see to it that it is not just wasted, that was also one lesson, that we started valuing food more. We means the middle class and also the poor people, they were able to understand how we are dependent, irrespective of the class, to be fed, or which needs to be supported by the government. And third is that live and preserve something for the coming generation. So when we are all the time talking about the degradation of the nature and the natural livelihoods issue, there is a need to look into how this our SDG number 3 has affected on number 1 and 2 on no poverty and zero hunger. Because of the good health and well-being was lot of vulnerability. It affected SDG 1 and SDG 2. It also the reduced inequalities, clean water, and decent work, economic growth, that has also been affected. Also the sustainable cities. We are saying sustainable cities, and we could see lakhs and millions of people walking the road, going back to their villages and searching for employment there. So the government had to search for the employment guarantee avenue in the areas, in the villages, and 20 lakh people, so 2 million people got employment into rural areas where most of the women were single. So in the long term, when it comes to next 15 years, I will just conclude with that. Basically 2020 to 2030 is the decade of action. So this we are supposed to have 50% women in every level for the decision making. It has to be within family, it has to be outside. So when it comes to our part of the world and all over the world, the domestic work needs to be shared by men and women together. The online work had changed the lifestyle. So all the time, if every member is in the home all the time, they need something to eat and something to drink all the time, 24 hours, whatever is the online time. Then to manage children at the time of the online work is also very difficult, because they need to be occupied in a good meaningful way. Along with that, we need to have safe neighborhood, safe homes, prepare for the worst, but hope and struggle for the success and survival in different circumstances. And we have also understood that communities after communities, countries after countries, we used to always say that there are certain sanitization happening in A country or B country, but we came across that Corona has not generally has not gave relief to any country as such. And just I will finish with one small this thing. I think in South America, one of our speaker was supposed to be coming, but she was not able to manage. But we came across a example on the Twitter, that if a woman is facing abuse in the family, and then if she cannot share with anybody, then the chemists were oriented, so that if she goes and she says that prescription with the hashtag, and then they understand that she needs some help, and help used to go there, because she cannot talk on phone in such circumstances. Also we came across with many police people who helped women who were in difficulty, especially taking women who are carrying and they need to go for a hospital. So along with that, I came across some policemen who got affected by corona, and he told me that I got the certificate because I worked a lot for the people. So I think these all words and things have really given us memories for our life to go ahead and to understand that the life can be so difficult, but on the other hand, the willpower of the people is very strong. And that there is a very famous song which says that ये न बुझो कि हम सदा के हारे हैं, राख के नीचे अब भी जल रहे अंगारे हैं. So there is a still thirst for life to go on and on and on. Thank you.
Thank you, Neelam. Really very comprehensive, really thoughtful answer. Thanks for sharing your insights on 1 year, 5 year, and then generational impact. So thanks a lot. We have a lot of comments on your presentation. I would like to share some. Aparna Sahai ji said that frugality is indeed important. She agrees with you and said something that COVID has taught us in this year is the value of frugality and our need to decrease our consumption. Dr. Shashikant Ahankari from Hello Medical Foundation is here. Hello, Dr. Ahankari. And he noted that there is a 40% rise in child marriages and 20% increase in domestic violence. Hello Medical Foundation just recently published this report. So according to their studies also, what all our panelists are saying here, sharing here is validated that indeed gender inequality, domestic violence is on the rise in the COVID time. So very useful, very relevant insights. Let's ask Chandani ma'am, could you please now share your thoughts on what are the short-term, medium-term, and longer-term impacts of COVID on the issues of gender justice, women empowerment, and what do you think as our way forward? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. After Neelamji's comprehensive speech, I think there's very little I can say. But what I would really want to share is the experiences that Neelamji shared of India is very much, what our study also says and experience says. And when I'm talking about Homenet South Asia, I'm talking about 900,000 members that we have from 60 affiliates that we have, So it's quite a large group that I'm talking about in South Asia itself. And they had come up with a charter of demand. As soon as, COVID happened, they said, just, the accountability lies at all levels, at government level, at the private sector, as the NGOs also, the UN and the donors are equally responsible for this. So they had come up with a charter of demand that was sent to the SAARC Secretary General and to all the head of states and government also. So I think, making that noise, telling, I would say, her stories is very important. Now, her stories has to be loud, clear, that everyone listens to. Small things about water, small things about childcare, that has to come out. And it should not be taken for granted. One thing that has come up after the pandemic is there has been some calculation, some counting has been done. And one thing that has come up is looking at the care economy. Now, the UN has come up with the figure of $10.8 trillion annually. That is not calculated in the GDP. So can you imagine if all that fund, that money is calculated and put in the GDP to be paid? So I think it's high time, by looking at all these experiences. And also, the gentleman talked about SDGs, but it's not only the slow part that worries me. One thing that really worries me is our learning from MDGs. Now, let me remind the group that MDG 3 on gender equality was not achieved even by one country in this world, not even the Nordic countries. So isn't it a matter of shame with all the money that was funneled and all the efforts that happened? So that learnings we had taken to SDGs. And what we did in 2019 was to localize SDGs. How could we link it, with our work? How do you calculate it? Now, as he himself said, the progress is very slow. And my fear is not only progress. My fear is the funds that were separated for SDGs, it is not taken somewhere else. It should again be funneled in SDGs itself. And the 5 SDGs, we talk about all the time. Along with that, I feel people are harping on SDG 5. Just gender equality, as we did in MDG 3, it doesn't work. So we'll have to look at different goals. And if you really ask me, all SDGs are equally important. All are very important. In Nepal, we say maybe the ocean one isn't, but that also has impact. 50% of the population are women. And when it comes to inequalities, they are the ones who suffer. So we have heard so much about it. So I think, what is really needed is we talk about quota system, we talk about affirmative action. Now for equality after the pandemic, by what she has gone through, in terms of domestic violence, in terms of, the overburdened care work. So I think, there has to be new affirmative action, in place. Maybe, shared parenting, shared housework, that these things really have to come up. If we are talking just having gender policies, having gender friendly policies and laws is not enough. It has to be implemented. There has to be enough money there. Investment has to be there. And women have to be seen in non-traditional roles. Again and again, we see women looked upon as vulnerable. They are put in one basket, in the same basket. And women are not homogeneous. We have to understand, we have to realize that they are very different. As our friend from Shanghai was sharing, that every woman, the doctor's wife had one story to say, whereas the other women, the expatriate's wife had another. So they all have, different degrees of inequalities. So I think it's very important that we should have more smart and innovative strategies to reach SDGs, and we should have new funds for that, new money for that, and that transformation doesn't happen in a day. So that process has to go on more strongly. And the digital divide that we talked about, let's make it digital unity. One thing we have seen, during this time, during this lockup 1 year, is how many Zoom and webinars have we taken, we have participated in. Mine went almost into hundreds. So, we are able to link. So why do we have to leave this? Our online should also go on. Online can be in terms of marketing, online can be for, just giving mental health training. It can be to give new skills to women. So it can be, in a very different, innovative ways we have to learn, we have to do it. And we have to, if we take the same business as usual, the same road, the same way, it doesn't help. We have to take a quantum leap. And now there should be no impunity. We see it, we don't see it. But we have to make sure we see it, we make a noise, we join hands, have a strong voice, and we have to say that accountability lies in everyone. And we as an individual, our family has accountability, so does the nation have it. And when we say nation, just not the government. We can't leave the private sector behind. We cannot leave the NGOs behind who have taken the responsibility. And the donors should also be included. So if we all join hands, I think the pledge is that if we join hands, there is still possibility for equality, peace, and development. So I still see the tunnel that Neelamji was talking about. I still see the light there. We can all do it if we are together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandani ji. What an inspiring sharing. And indeed, accountability lies with everyone. Government, non-government organization, private sector, we all need to join hands. I really agree. Let's move on to our next panelist, Mr. Jha. Could you please talk about long-term imperatives of COVID and SDGs?
Thank you. See, the short-term and long-term implications of COVID are many, but the economic impact on women is so huge that women economists have started calling the economic downturn as secession rather than recession. I mean, we are likely to see more women being pushed into poverty and more women being unequal. We are likely to see more girls falling out of the school and being pushed into harmful practices like early and child marriage and forced prostitution. Uh, Healthcare is also, I mean, we are likely to have more child mortality and maternal mortality, as has been the experience after many crises. Uh, as far as violence is concerned, violence is still a huge issue. In India also, we saw 30 to 40% rise in violence being reported. That is too when we have the data from NFHS 4, which says that in India, only 3% of the women report violence to police. We are more likely to see increased unpaid care work for women and loss of jobs. So, how to take care of that? And how to transform this pandemic into an opportunity for gender equality? I mean, I think it's very important to understand that unless we take targeted and strategize action for gender responsive recovery from pandemic, it won't happen. I mean, if you look at what has happened in gender equality, even within the 25 years after Beijing, I mean, we had very small progress on increasing personal capacity of women, reduction in child and maternal mortality to some extent, enrollment in the schools, especially in the primary sections, have improved. More women are now voting than before. But if you look at indicators related to empowering capabilities, I think there is very slow progress. I mean, there is still a wide scale discrimination. There is still widespread violence against women. It's not a question of developing countries in Asia or South Asia. It is also happening equally. US, there are estimates that the cost of violence against women in US is 4.4 billion US dollars every year. In France and Spain, women and civil society organizations have to ensure that some of the malls, supermarkets, and pharmacy stores were turned into where female could go and seek psychosocial support, counseling, and also action against violence. They sometimes use a code word mask 90, which like Joshi ji said earlier, that used to activate women support services. So violence is still a big issue. As far as participation, labor force in work is concerned, I mean, while men have 82% work, women are still just around half, less than 50% women still get employment. As far as leadership in political spaces or entrepreneurial spaces is concerned, we are severely limited. So we had very limited progress since Beijing, and last year we celebrated Beijing plus 25. But I think all the recommendations from Beijing plus 25 remains equally relevant now. We don't have to forget the fact that pandemic definitely enhanced existing asymmetries and inequalities and subjected women to more misery, violence, discrimination. But poorest people and majority of women among them live in the similar emergency-like conditions. They have lived in emergency-like conditions all over their lives. So gender responsive recovery, unless we have strategies in education, strategies in labor markets, I mean, wage gap, you see, we have worst wage gap in South Asia. Women earn more than 36, 38% less than men. And this has huge long-term implications for gender parity. And there are studies even before the pandemic, which used to say that in the region we can't have gender parity for at least 163 years. So that might increase further. I mean, even if we can ensure that there are gender responsive recovery plans in some of the sectors that employ women more, like manufacturing, agriculture, will be half done. But the overall priority as far as SDGs is concerned, I mean, the recovery has to be responsive to women and also to climate change, because climate change is the biggest threat, not only for SDG 13, but across the Agenda 2030, including SDG 5 and women. So I think these things are very important. I'll stop here, rest in the later stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to now ask Ms. Aparna Vaikar to share her thoughts on impacts. And I just want to remind our speakers to be concise. We do want to have time audience interaction. So we want to hear your thoughts, but if you could be concise, that would be appreciated.
Sure, Satluj. Thank you so much for reminding me about the time. Yeah, I would like to say very shortly about the impact of pandemic on the gender equality or the gender bias. I personally feel that, pandemic or no pandemic, there is this gender bias, like Mr. Ajay Jha just mentioned about it, that it is still there and it is very difficult to remove that. Even in a country like China, I see that happening everywhere, like in very few cities like Shanghai or Beijing. Maybe there are some women who are superior, or they treat their women like they are queens. But in smaller towns, we still see the similar picture like everywhere else in the world. There are a lot of female feticides still happening. Earlier, they used to happen because they had the single child policy. But now, even if the single child policy is removed, people, many of them, they still prefer to have a boy child or a male child over a female child. And the treatment to this female child is a lot different than the way how they will treat the male child. So it is very sad that it is still there, and we hope that it will somehow, improve in the smaller towns as well, like it has improved in the bigger cities. I would like to also give example of Thailand, where actually the main source of earning is tourism, and unfortunately or sadly, it is sex tourism. So whenever I think about it, I feel very sad that a country like Thailand, who really has a rich cultural heritage, is only known for one particular reason, and that is sex tourism. So we can easily imagine how much impact this pandemic must have had on the economy, or everything on the country like Thailand. So I feel that the government should actually take actions, and they try and educate the girls and try and divert them from earning easy money, or not exactly easy money. Maybe they don't have a good education, they are very poor, and that's why they go and opt for these options. So I just hope that there will be some actions taken to remove this. Last but not least, the very, very developed country like Japan, also we see the gender bias. We know that in Japan, they want their women to be subservient. They don't want them to grow. They really have a very bad treatment for women, even if they earn equally well, like a man of the house. This is a very sad scene. I think only Singapore is a country where we don't see that much gender bias, or I would say that true gender equality is there. So I really feel that we need organizations like Sri Aadhar Kendra everywhere in the world, who are there to support these women who are undergoing the domestic violence, or who are going to the wrong direction. We need to support them. We really need such organization more. And I also feel that, the government should also take actions to support, to educate these girls, these women. At the end, I would like to mention the proverb. It's a very nice proverb that the hand that rocks the cradle has a lot of power to change the world or to rule the world. And the government should actually try and strengthen these hands, because when they are strengthening these hands, they are not only strengthening the women, but they are actually strengthening themselves. So I would just like to stop here, and we can go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. And indeed, discrimination against women is a global phenomenon, whether it is Japan, it is India, US, every country, and women in every country experience this, suffer from it. It's a true global story. That's really true. Aparna Pathakji, over to you.
Thank you, Saklaj. See, during this pandemic, what we have seen is SDGs 1, that is no poverty, zero hunger, SDG 2, and of course, the main good health and well-being, SDG number 3. So everywhere, all over the world, everyone has suffered for that. So what I feel is we have to come together, join hands with community volunteers, government machinery, work together. And the main thing is like now how we have connected on virtual platform. I think something which we have learned, like no physical distancing, we have started everything on online. In Sri Aadhaar Kendra also, what we did was, the first thing we did was diverted our landlines to mobile lines to have 24/7 helpline service for counseling for senior citizen, disabled, because everyone was in really mentally bad stage. So they really needed a counseling over there. What we did was we trained our staff to have conference call in the beginning so they can add and merge more people. Then we went up to the video call conferencing, and mostly we worked with domestic violence cases. So there with video calls, what happened was those women feel that, okay, even this pandemic situation, they are not alone. And our work was continued even during pandemic. So when we see all that, I understand that digital literacy is very important. Virtual platform is important, even if post-pandemic, it's not possible everybody to go there. It's not possible everyone to share their thoughts. So I think even with virtual platform, we should still go ahead, even post-pandemic, so that we can connect. Because I remember we had 2 conferences. One is at national level, state level, which was Sampark Setu, where we got connected with most of the NGOs. The respected Neelam Tai had arranged it. And in that, along with the NGOs, even government machinery was there. So here I like to mention joining hands is very important, because everybody could share their thoughts, share their experience. They could understand what are the situation, what is the problem, and we were ready to find a solution together. One more thing, we attended Asia Civil Society's capacities that can make difference. Yes, CSOs definitely can make difference. We have to get connected with local volunteers, community volunteers, and we can spread it all national level, international level. Connecting globally is very important, because sometimes by exchanging information, sharing thoughts, sharing the action plans, help everyone to solve their problems. Because as we mentioned, all over the world, we see gender inequality, gender pay gap. We don't see women in financial decisions as well. At home, even in the budget, we see there are no financial decision makers. And when we see climate finance, or when we see, like I work in oil and gas industry as well, and there I hardly see 19% women in the industry itself. So we need more participation from women, and this can happen when we exchange our thoughts. So I feel the action plan would be to get connected virtually, because virtually we can get connected everywhere. I would like to mention here our volunteers, our women from remote village are connected to CSW 65 session here. So that's a very something we learn from bad situation. So virtual platform is, I would say, opportunity to get connected everyone, and that's the way we can go ahead with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aparna Pathakji. And thank you to all the participants for such thoughtful and inspiring sharings from all of you. I would like to mention some of our long-term collaborators, our friends, well-wishers, and also many prominent personalities, many experts in women empowerment and gender justice field are attending our session. I would like to just thank to all of them. Nimit Dhuri is here from Lok Satta, Manju Joshi is here from Sisoricon, Sadhna Tai Dadhich is here, Dr. Shashikant Ahankari is here, then Vaishali Vande, Srushti Malla, Anjali Kulkarni, um, and Ms. Chandrakala Nair. We really thank you for coming here and thank you for your support and wishes to our program, to our event. And we will move to third round, but I see we have 54 audience here. That's a really great number. So maybe we can also start a parallel interactive session. So if we from audience, if you have any questions, any comments, please use our chat feature. Please write your question. Please write your name, your organization's name, your country, and also name of the speaker to whom would you would like to ask this question. And as we will collect questions from participants, I would like to go to the third part of our conversation and ask our panelists to share their concrete recommendation, just one or two, for the government at national level, state level, local level, and also the decade for action for UN. So let's start with Dr. Gore. What would you like to share as your recommendations?
In the earlier deliberations, Chandani ji mentioned about certain MDGs were not at all implemented even by one country. Also, I don't like to sound negative. However, the basically process after Beijing, every 5 years there was a review, and every year there was commission on status of women. So my first recommendation will be to the United Nations and also to their regional offices like Asia, Africa, to have a better, I would say, presence to have these interactive meetings, because the momentum which was created at the time of Beijing conference, though there was, when Chandani she was there in South Asia, she was heading, every 2 years there were biennial conferences of 2010. But after that, last 10 years, though there has been few meetings, uh, there the participation from younger groups and participation on new issues, there is a need to rejuvenate that process. That is number one, because lack of political will and very poor institutional mechanisms are the two hurdles which have been mentioned again and again. So when it comes to the UN, that's the issue. But on the other hand, as I am a deputy chairperson also, where we are supposed to monitor and regulate both the houses, though there were a lot of hurdles because of corona, many MLAs and MLCs become positive. Our the chair speaker became positive, and we survived somehow with the virtual meetings and all. So, but I have given recommendation to Honorable Chief Minister and also to the Chief Secretary and the Minister for Environment and Climate Mitigation, that we are trying to do an exercise in which I will like to take help of every member who is present here, that we are trying to club 3 to 4 SDGs together, and we are taking review of every department, how they are mainstream within education, how they are mainstream into urban ministry, how they are mentioned into agriculture, how they have mainstream the SDGs when it comes to other departments like social justice, women and child, also industry. And we have already taken the review of 6 SDGs in presence of the Minister for Environment. So what we are trying to do, this is a book which has been written by me with my few friends, that is in Marathi. But basically, it's the status report of government of India in each SDGs where India stands, and which state is there. So we are trying to take this book to every collector and every officer, so that they are, they become more aware about the issue. Secondly, generally. Taking up this also, the support from the media and the civil society is very important. So most of the people, they think that gender equality is related only with women and child department, which is not the case. There are certain SDGs which are related with other aspects of the government in the state. So keeping this time, I will not be very long, but 100 crore rupees for has been given for each district by the finance deputy chief minister in this budget, because that was also announced on 8th March, International Women's Day. And these are for the innovative projects on gender equality or social justice or any SDGs which is related with the larger this issue. So I have demanded and I have requested to the government to come out with participatory meeting with the NGOs in every district planning committee so that they can share their innovative projects. They may not get money directly, but they can definitely direct the government to use that money of 100 crores in each district, which will be having used for the community support program when we are thinking about SDGs and pandemic together. So this process I am wishing to take forward for next 2 to 3 years. Thank you.
Great work. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Chandani ma'am, would you like to share your thoughts on recommendations?
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try to be very brief. Now, one, I endorse what Neelamji said, is we do need a gender platform. That's very, very important because it becomes a accountability mechanism to review. As we heard from expert like Ajayji, that even the Beijing Platform for Action and the Beijing Review, it has still, by Beijing plus 25 also, it was not achieved. So maybe we can put it together, the Beijing Platform Action and SDGs together, and have this review process going on. So maybe, that is something that should really initiate. And if Government of India takes the initiative, I think all the SAARC countries would definitely follow that. So we are here, together to push that agenda. So it could be an accountability mechanism, a pressure group, and it could also be a peer sharing and learning that we talked about, a group that could really learn from each other. That is one thing. And I think we need very strong slogans. We are converts. Like the 54 of us who are here understand all the gender rhetoric. You understand. We don't have to say, you understand, what we are talking about. But there are lots of other people who are not wearing the gender lens. So for them, we need jingles, we need more messages. Like something new I heard the other day, which I loved, was all women are working women. Only some are salaried. I loved it. Okay? Even housewives, house managers, they're all working, but some get wages. That's it. So I think we need, that kind of more slogan. And it's not against men, but also saying men also have responsibilities, in running the day-to-day household work also. I think we need that. And the other part I really want to say, unless these things are counted and unless it gets a perspective, things will not be talked about, will not be taken seriously, will not get, the budget separated for it. The investment doesn't happen. So I think the census is coming up. So that is one area that you could really help, though it's a head count, but that is where the importance of women's contribution lies. So I think these two areas, I would really think that the badly hit COVID, reactions can be a little bit repaired. It can be healed. We are all bruised, we have all kind of wounds inside us. So maybe these could be the balms that could heal that. And again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Neelamji and the wonderful panelists today for making me a part of this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chandani ji. Mr. Zam, could you please be next?
Thank you so much. As far as UN Decade of Action is concerned, we have been writing from Secretary General to everybody else to look into systemic issues and structural barriers, not only in achieving SDGs in the medium term, but also in fight against COVID. The political economy is that there is no international collaboration. And if you want to achieve gender equality globally, unless there is global collaboration, nothing will happen. If you look at the documents of the UN, there are several documents laying down impacts and what would be gender responsive strategies, or say SDGs or climate responsive strategies. You will nowhere find any mention of international cooperation on ODA. I mean, I don't understand whether ODA does not remain relevant anymore. I mean, from 1975, when the UN General Assembly adopted the resolution that rich countries provide 0.7% of their gross national income to poor and developing countries, it has not happened. Except for 5 countries, UK, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Luxembourg. None of the other countries have even progressively increased to 0.7% of their gross national income. I mean, majority of the OECD DAC countries members give 0.2% of their gross national income as ODA. And that too, majority of it is being spent domestically in the donor countries itself on migration, on migrants, on security, on vaccine development, on international collaboration, on vaccine, etc., etc. Very small amount goes to poor and developing countries. So one is that priority we want UN to take in terms of decade of action. Second is we are asking them to end vaccine capitalism. I mean, right now, the priority for each and everyone in the world is to get the vaccine. But you will be surprised to know that by January, high-income countries, which have just 16% of the global population, had reserved 60% of the available doses of vaccines. Poor countries in Asia like Laos, PDR, Cambodia, Myanmar, Bangladesh, in Africa, they don't have any other option than to depend on global collaboration platforms like COVAX or Gavi Alliance. And I think they won't be fully vaccinated even before 5 years. I mean, there is a need to understand that unless a substantial majority of the population is vaccinated, vaccination and resilience against the pandemic will not happen globally. So it's in the interest of the developed countries only that they subsidize vaccination in poor countries, because all of their supply chains run through developing and poor countries. So these are the two important priorities that we are focusing in terms of what could be done immediately. And also there are several issues related to SDGs. But for the lack of time, I mean, these are the two pertinent ones that I discussed here. Nationally, I have already said that gender responsive and climate responsive recovery is very important in each and every sector. Unless it happens, neither we will achieve gender equality nor we will achieve SDGs. Locally, I would say that if smaller organizations could conduct some impact studies on what was the impact on women, how much percentage of women were affected, who were the most vulnerable, what are their vulnerabilities, and how it could be addressed, that would very much help national gender response strategy. Nationally also, I think we should engage with broader coalitions of civil society organizations in increased monitoring at the national level, at state level, of what is happening with regard to sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to encourage our audience to write their questions in the chat window for our panelists. And also, if they have any recommendations, we would surely like to hear from them. If they have any recommendations for Decade for Action 2020 to 2030, that would also be a wonderful addition to this session. So please use the chat window. And let's now ask Aparna Vaikarji to share her comments.
Sure, Satlaj, thank you so much. I thank Neelam Tai again one more time for inviting me to such a prestigious forum. I really liked the views shared by Mr. Ajay Jha, Neelam Tai and Chandni ji. So I would just like to add one more time, I mentioned it earlier, that like he just said that locally, we need to have the organizations like Sri Aadhar Kendra. Even internationally, if we can have something like that and have them like in a smaller groups, and like Aparna mentioned a few minutes ago, we should be still digitally connected to each other, and it will not be so difficult to have such a digital platform, especially to treat the issues like domestic violence or whatever the different issues women are facing during the pandemic or because of the pandemic or even later. And I would also like to say that if we can do this, if we can have such smaller groups, such organizations, it will help in supporting the women getting stronger or getting more respectable jobs, things like that. And one more, last but not least, I just want to mention that every woman should also focus on her fitness, because physically she needs to be fit if she wants to take care of her family, if she wants to take care of her nation. And of course, mental health is also equally important. So as much as the women come together and support each other, I think it is going to help in a broader platform as well. So I thank again Nilamtai and her team and Satlaj for moderating this event so very well. Thank you so much. And that's all I have to share.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aparna ji. And let's move to Aparna Pathak ji. And let's hear from her what, according to her, are recommendation from government and also for international organizations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, see, even if we say national, state, local government or UN's action for decade 2030, my recommendation is full utilization of research and efforts, mobilize action to support initiatives to end gender-based violence and achieve 50-50 participation of women in all sectors. Because it's really important. Like when we see statistical data, we see women and girls are not there in STI, that is science, technology, innovation, as well as in decision making, policy making, and in research. If you globally see, only 17% are there in STI and only 30% in research. So when I talk about efforts, we have to promote education for girls and women in technology in all the sectors, and involving everyone in action plan is very important. So what we say is no one is left behind. And my second recommendation is you all young generation. Yes, the young generation is just come up with new innovative ideas, and the way they work is different. So I guess it's time we should target generation equality and gender equality. Here I thank everybody, and thank you, Satlaj, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we have many comments from our participants. We have a very insightful comment from Dr. Ahankari. So let me read that to you. He said that issues of gender discrimination, equality are all the time. But in this pandemic, these are very serious and different. As education of girls have absolutely stopped. Economy in rural farmers has collapsed because of lockdowns. They could not sell their produce. Mental health depression raised considerably, and no psychiatric services or counseling at PHC level is available. Gender-wise, ASHA workers, nurses, frontline workers in every fields were predominantly women, are predominantly women, which should be noted. Yes, that's true. There is need of new policies for comprehensively, there are need for new comprehensive policies, and these are part of his recommendations. And Vinayak Lashkarji, he also noted that we need to make a concrete policy for migrated women. And there is one question from audience for speakers, and that question is, can speakers share how new technology and social media helped them in their work to organize and involve more people? And examples would be inspiring. And I just remember Aparna Pathak ji just shared something on these lines in her sharing. So I would like to ask her first. Can you share some examples of stories where you use this new digital technology in your work to help people to connect to women? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Satlaj. When I mentioned about the action plan, there we mentioned about transformation to digital literacy and online technology, video calls, because our work is we have to accommodate more and more people for counseling. So I would like to mention here, like if XC Aadhaar Kendra, usually what happens is in office, everyone comes and then we have counseling, and along with the help of lawyer, we do help the victims. So during this pandemic, it was not possible. So what we actually did was we contacted the police station from that local area, and the victims' relatives were there. Usually what we do is once it is the compromise document is signed, we keep it with ourselves, and after 1 month, we hand it over to them. So in this situation, our counselors arranged conference calls and video calls. The police were there, lawyers were there, the relatives were there, and locally we could do it. And the best part was the police and the local relative, they kept the documents with them, and they were in contact with us. We took the follow-up. So our staff was safe, they were at home, and with this digital technology, we could actually do it. And what happened was, like, the follow-up sessions were there. Those who couldn't come, they received call from police station. So this way, by adopting the new technology, we could reach up to them. We could reach up to the disabled and needy people through our WhatsApp groups. So, and the thing is, we trained our staff, and then in smaller groups, they trained our volunteers. So I'd like to mention here the credit goes to staff and our senior trustees, because everybody got literate. They could actually download all the apps and use their smartphones smartly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very good example. Very insightful work. Amazing work. Thanks a lot. Does any other speaker want to take this question, sharing stories?
Can I come in, Sattaji, for a moment?
Sorry?
Can I come in for a moment to answer this question?
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I mean, digital technologies and ICT technologies help people a lot in, especially in the poor countries, in terms of making financial transfers and cash transfers available to poor people. They help people in communication and enabling them to overcome the isolation of the lockdowns, etc. And they helped education. They helped also health services in many ways. So digital access to digital technology and ICT technology should definitely be enhanced. There is no question of thinking twice about it. In the Asia Pacific and also in India, we have only less than 1/3 of women who have smartphones. So these needs to be increased. But what we also need to consider is the downsides of the technology and digitization. I mean, digitization or digitalization, whatever you call it, comes with attendant benefits, or we also call it evils of artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, which have the capacity of a potential of reducing livelihoods of millions of workers in our parts of the world also. And there are enough examples of these technology, rather than enabler, if not used sensitively, can also increase existing inequalities. So while welcoming and encouraging digital transformation, we should also ask for a robust monitoring mechanism, which also includes civil society organizations, because globally and nationally too, there are no legislative framework for managing this. And there are so many questions of privacy safeguard, unauthorized sharing of data, function creep. You might remember Government of India banned so many Chinese apps recently because they were stealing information from phones. So these are very valid questions, and in many cases, digitization and access to technology is deliberately used against people. In many countries, facial recognition technologies have you have been used to identify people who are protesting against government and targeting them. So while praising digital technology and welcoming and encouraging it, we should also be aware of the downsides of the high and also the low tech. Thank you.
Very true, very true. And it goes back to some of the points that were raised in this panel earlier, that authentication of data, digital safety, and that is a really important women issues. And democratization of digitalization is also really important as we are moving more and more towards the digital age. Madam Chair has raised her hand and have been waiting patiently. So I will now ask her to share her thoughts. Thank you.
Along with all the challenges and limitations to digital media, uh, compared to direct organizing of event, it is quite cheap because we came across, you may be surprised, we had a literary women's convention. So women in different sector who write poems, then Anjali Kulkarni is there, then the autobiography, then women who write down some comic script. Along with that, it gave a lot of platform to women and men from the literary field also. And first time in our legislative council also, we had online Marathi program this time for the 27th. Along with that, it helped us in while there was distribution of food and other things were going on. Sometimes because of the lockdown, the police and others were saying that no women will be coming together. There should not be more than three or four. So at that time, they could show us on the video to them that see, this is the program which is supported by such and such people. So it helps, it gives also evidence to a certain extent. Also, along with that, as a deputy chairperson, I was able to have communication with lot of people who government officers, which is very actually convenient for them. Otherwise, for them to travel for one hour to a certain place and again to be there for 2 hours. So losing instead of half a day, having two or three meetings consecutively, it's very quite important. Only thing is that we need to have in such meetings good discipline, and it has to be very short meeting, because otherwise day after days it can't go on and on. Lastly, the misuse of the digital information, or sometimes we have to also train our own I would say volunteers and workers, and even I would say middle class people who think that they know exactly good technology, but without verifying, they will just forward. Sometimes if I check what you have forwarded, they will say that I didn't read what I forwarded. So these are the issues of the digital literacy. But along with that, what is that different type of privacy. Now this privacy issue, lot of people are in our time, we are trying to understand and we are trying to explain many people, but they don't understand it at all, because once it goes viral, I will tell you, there is some of the our my interviews, they go on circulate. If I talk something was about the police on a channel, I came across after 3 months, people say that there are 50,000 viewers on Facebook of a certain video. So we have to be very responsible when we talk about certain things. Then there are mimes where they try to edit and they make it in a very comic way. And sometimes if there is a small mistake done by somebody in any meeting, then also it is such a flared up in a big way. So it has to be used with a lot of caution and care. Also, threatening calls to women politicians and men politicians, men social worker, women social workers, anybody who disagrees has become so rampant that also on Twitter, these trolling groups are there and who go on making fun of everything. So it is slightly painful also, but if it is within a restricted group to a certain extent with who follow certain regulation, it is quite useful media, and it gives a lot of help. Also, I will share one small example and I will finish. My mother, her women's group, all of them are about 80, 75. So for them to have a Zoom meeting was something very different type of experience, because they were saying that which venue we will tell to the charity commissioner, because it won't happen in anybody's house. So they were, how we can write in these minutes. So for people from different ages, different issues are still there. Even for all of us to learn all these things is very difficult. On the other hand, I sometimes feel very inconvenient if just people in the meeting who are supposed to speak, they stop their video and then they move somewhere else. So all the time we have to ask that person, Mr. Or Mrs. Are you there? Are you there? Especially in the government meetings. So I tell them not to close down the videos. So if I put on the chat, now I'm expecting answer from you. So all these issues, I think we are going through different process. But when it comes to the government, certain apps also don't work. And then this COVID app, it was very difficult for people to follow along with all these things. So maybe it is coming as a mixed bag, definitely.
Yes, we are all learning as we are going through this. There is a learning curve for all of us, sure. There are many questions and many more comments. Dr. Manjusha had said that digital responsibility, your point is very correct. Uh, I but there are still more questions, but in the interest of time, I think we should go towards the wrapping up of this session. We just have 10 more minutes left in this meeting. So really sorry for some people, we cannot answer your question, but we will reach out to you and we will answer the question in writing, in email, by whichever way you would like to prefer. So please do that. Please mention that in the chat window and we would certainly like to reach out to you. So Dr. Gore, would you like to add any closing remarks or should we just move to vote of thanks? Please.
Uh, yeah, I need to make one announcement, a 5 sentence announcement.
Sure.
Just I'm hoping to finish within 1.5 minutes. I think this taking ahead into all these ideas and it has been welcomed by our panelists and the members. I think we can have similar virtual discussions or virtual interactive sessions every 2 to 3 months. We'll try to figure out either it can be into the framework of SDGs and gender equality, or it can be depending upon what type of institutional mechanisms we'll like to have, keeping this in mind, which can be worked globally, locally, regionally, and also with our local government. So every 2 months, if we are uh, eager to meet again and again each other, then every 2 months we can have this platform going ahead. So that is the announcement which I will like to make. And along with Sri Aadhar Kendra, whoever organizations come as their entity, then it can be a joint planning meeting also to come out with different issues and all. And maybe it should be have a nature of global level. So because we have got long time now to work from 20 to 2030. So keeping this in mind, we can have every 2 months review of what's happening new and we can update. And maybe someday if there is a possibility of having direct meetings or dialogue, then it can be helpful on other platforms also. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I now invite Mukta Karandikar, trustee, Sri Aadhar Kendra, to extend vote of thanks on behalf of us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mukta Karandikar, as Satlaj mentioned, trustee for Sri Aadhar Kendra. I would really like to thank, firstly, all our volunteers and staff who have worked very hard to organize this event. Then I would also like to thank very much all the participants who have been patient with us through the initial technical glitches and stayed with us and participated and asked and commented. And then moving on to all our panelists, this was a very insightful session. So I would like to thank Neelam Goreji for her guidance and kind of lead in organizing this event. Chandni Joshi ji, her deep experience and long years of working in this sector has been very insightful. One of her line that really stayed with me is all women are working but only some of them are paid. That's something really important for us to kind of take away from her. Mr. Ajay Jhazi, his very thoughtful comments, his deep understanding, as well as all the data-driven things that he discussed with us about SDGs, their progress, and very, very important goals that we need to kind of focus on, as well as how the progress is going with a lot of study that he has put in. So thank you so much for his time and insightful comments. Aparna Vaikarji, I really like to call out that it's very late for her. So really, firstly, really thankful and really appreciate her staying with us for so long and really giving a different perspective from China, who has been in the center of this entire pandemic, and a different view set. And Aparna Pathakji for her work as well as her comments around the actual work that Sri Aadhar Kendra has done over the pandemic and how we have used digital technology to move some of our agenda forward. And last but not least, Satlaj Dighe for her moderation and all her effort in organizing and coordinating this event. And thank you so much for your time. And I hope we can continue this partnership.
Thank you so much, Mukta. And I would just like to add Ms. Jailam Joshi ji. Without her, this could not have been possible. She is the woman behind all this enterprise that we have put together. And I would also like to note our long-term well-wishers Lakbir ji, Tejal ji, who have come here and supported us. Thanks a lot. It means a lot to us. And thank you, Mukta. And I would like to announce that this event has been concluded, and
Can we have a family photograph? Can we have a group photograph before we conclude?
Oh, sure. That's a great idea. So can everybody who wants to turn their videos on so we can take one good picture? And our tech support team, Satyajit, Rashmi, Roshni, Sambit, I would like to thank you. And could you also please take picture? You will be really good at it. Okay. Please turn on your camera. Who is taking the picture? Can somebody tell me? Or should I take it? Okay, I can take it.
Okay, I'll also take another one.
Okay, yeah. Rashmi, you go ahead.
Okay. Okay, one.
Please keep your cameras on.
Yeah.
So.
And also, yeah, you all have mentioned your names, but please keep the camera on.
Yeah. So I'll take a picture at the count of 3. So 1, 2, 3.
More power to women.
We have one more screen. Let's move to another screen and take that photograph also.
Okay.
Yeah, Rashmi, she can do that from her end because it's.
I took one, but we can take one more from another.
Yeah, or maybe Sambit can take it. He is in the second screenshot. Please put your cameras on.
If you can. Is it done?
Thanks, Sadhana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
Bye,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
And see you
Have
all
a good
soon.
day. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Chandani ji, please stay back if possible.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Aparna Tai. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
wonderful.
moderating.
Amazing.
No, it's I never did it before like this. So this was a great
Excellent.
experience. Thank you so much, everyone, for everybody's views were so amazing, and I learned so many things today. So I feel really nice to be here. Thanks a lot.
Lot of comments on your presentation. Lot of people commented on your sharing. That was wonderful.
That's nice to know. Okay, bye-bye. Good night. Oh,
Bye.
sorry.
Bye. Good night.
Have a
Take
good day,
care.
actually.
Yeah, it's
Bye.
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 Aparna Mami, amazing. That was so
Yeah.
good. And your answer was so amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, really
Thank you.
good.
I think
I'm ending.
work that we have done in Sri Aadhar Kendra, I think, is also not very well known across.
Yeah.
All the things that we have done is very
Yes,
informative.
actually,
Just a second.
I had to be so brief because there is so much that we can have one full session. So I had to restrict myself. I said this time limit is really, I mean,
मुक्ताताई, सतलजताई, रेश्माताई, धन्यवाद.
No, Anita.
Thank you.
Anita, video on
हा,
कर.
बोला.
Video on कर.
अवतार नाही दिसणार. खरं तर अंधार दिसतोय आमच्या इथे.
अच्छा, ठीक आहे.
बर. ओके.
एकच मिनिट.
आहे अंजू आहे.
अंधार
अंजू
दिसतोय आमच्या
अंधारे.
इथे.
अच्छा.
हो, थँक्यू अंजुताई.
हा माझ्या मुलीमुळे जमलं मला.
वा वा.
खूप छान
Thank you,
माहिती
Komal.
मिळाली.
Hello, लीनाताई.
2 घंटे तो हो रहा बनते आने की गया
थँक्यू विभावरी. फेसबुक वरती लिंक टाकल्याबद्दल थँक्यू.
Oh,
Wow, wow.
Mishibari.
Yeah, some joined from Facebook Live as well.
अच्छा.
Yeah, Vibhavari posted shared link on Sri Aadhar Kendra Facebook page.
अरे वा.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you.
अनंता मुलीने सांगितलं.
I'll be dropping out of this.
Hello.
हॅलो
एंड करू का?
अपर्णाताई.
हा, बोल
हा.
बोल.
हॅलो अपर्णाताई.
हा बोला.
वैशाली ताई बोलतात ते.
हा अंजूताई बोलते. सुरुवातीला ते लिंकचं काही समजतच नव्हतं.
हो.
हा नंतर मग ते प्रयत्न केला पण काही समजतच नव्हतं.
हो मध्ये नंतर आम्ही झूमची लिंक शेअर केली.
हो, तीच काय केली मी
तेच ना.
अंजूला वगैरे
हा.
पुन्हा.
हा मग ते उशिरा लक्षात आलं ना ते.
हो.
चला ह्याच्यामुळे तर आम्ही शिकायला लागलो.
हो.
काहीच कळत नाही काहीच जमत नाही.
आता सगळं जमायला लागलं तुम्हाला.
हो ना. मला तिकडे मस्त.
हा
व्हिडिओ म्हणायचं.
छान. ओके
चला, मी हे
Thank
बंद
you.
करते आता मीटिंग. इव्हेंट संपवते. ओके.
हो, चालेल.
हो. थँक्यू. टेक केअर.
थँक्यू
बाय.
ताई.